Hello everyone, it's me again, and I'm here with another video. We're going back to the subject of AI. Why? Looking back at my ChatGPT Transformers movie rewrite videos, I actually decided it'd be for the best to try and go back to AI, but I have now decided to move on from ChatGPT and move on to something like Google Gemini. I'll be asking Google Gemini certain questions about what if a DC hero was in The Incredibles. Let's begin, shall we? Okay. What if Batman was in The Incredibles? Here's how Batman would likely fit into an Impact the Incredibles universe. During glory days, despite his lack of powers, would be an established respected crime fighter. He would be seen as the ultimate example of a non-powered hero using science, technology, and rigorous training to stand alongside the supers. His unique status as a hero without powers might be a point of debate. The government would likely see his high-tech gadgets and vigilante status as a violation and will force him to retire like other supers. But since the ban is specifically on supers, people with inherent powers, Batman might be one of the few only active vigilantes left. Operating in total secrecy and constantly hunted by the government and the National Super Agency. This would make him the most experienced underground hero. A is tech ban and B is powerless exemption. How do you interact with the family? He would respect Mr. Incredible's strength and heroic drive, but would likely clash with his impulsive nature and collateral damage. In the past, they might have been uneasy allies, with Batman viewing Bob's reliance on brute force as a strategic weakness. In terms of Elastigirl, her intelligence focused on strategy and adherence to the law, even when retired, would make her the most compatible with Batman. She'd be the most likely person to trust him during the events of the movie. In terms of Dash, Violet, and Jack, he would recognize the kid's immense potential and would likely be a staunch defender of their right to use their powers. He could even mentor Violet in using her stealth and force fields more strategically. Maybe the point it's trying to make is that Violet could be this universe's Batgirl? I don't know. But the conflict with Syndrome, uncovering the conspiracy is that, of course, Batman is the world's greatest detective, and he would likely uncover Syndrome's plan to kill all supers much faster than Mr. Incredible did. His forensic skills, network of informants, and stealth capabilities would be perfectly suited to infiltrating Syndrome's remote island undetected. In terms of the Omni Droid, a direct confrontation with the final Omni Droid would be extremely dangerous without prep time. But however, due to his primary strategy is disruption and explosion of weaknesses, he focused on finding a structural flaw, an access panel or control vulnerability in the robot's AI design, perhaps using a powerful EMP or targeted explosive charge. In terms of Syndrome, his rivalry with Syndrome would be compelling. Syndrome is a tech-based genius, would be like one of Batman's own villains, a cross between Lex Luthor and the Riddler. Lex Luthor is more Superman's villain, but alas, okay, I guess? Crucially, they both lack inherent powers, but one uses his gifts for vengeance, and the other for justice. Syndrome vengeance, Batman justice. Syndrome would see Batman as a rival who succeeded as a powerless hero, feeling his jealousy. Batman's biggest advantage over Syndrome is his strategic mind and combat experience. Syndrome is brilliant, but also arrogant and strategically inept. Traits Batman would exploit to defeat him. In terms of Edna Mode, she would have a famously complex relationship with Batman. As we all know, she famously despises capes. No capes! But Batman's cape is iconic and crucial to his fear tactic persona. Edna might initially refuse to design for him, citing his cape as an unacceptable risk. On the other hand, she would adore his technology and Acacia did not power heroism. She likely see his high-tech armor and gadgets as the ultimate challenge and a masterpiece of ingenuity, possibly making him a detachable, retracting, high-tech cape that could justify its existence to her. Okay, I'm going to add some history for Batman. Okay, let me just paste something I copied. Let me do this. I'm basically gonna be kind of pulling a page from my "What if Batman?" Not Batman. What if someone made a Batman movie video and go with the counterparts? Let me just do that. But with a twist, which I'm going to put in now. What? Hold on. Sam. Maybe. Okay. That's it. Done. No, I can't. Let's reload. Okay, I placed in the villains he faced: Joker, Mr. Freeze, Hugo Strange, Catman, Clayface, Two-Face, Harley Quinn, Scarecrow, Firefly, Penguin, Killer Croc, Man-Bat, Deathstroke, Deadshot, and Electrocutioner. A reference to some earlier plans for the Raimi films and the films that end up happening. Retired due to Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman, being pregnant with her son Terry during the end of the Golden Days, which perfectly aligns his retirement with the beginning of the ban of supers, making his choice both a personal desire and legal necessity. Basically, Batman would have seen the growing public backlash and the lawsuit against supers like the one against Mr. Incredible as the inevitable end of the glory days. The threat of his identity being exposed while his new family was vulnerable would have been intolerable. Selina's pregnancy with Terry, a son who may or may not inherit her or a super's unpredictable gene, would have been the ultimate trigger, retiring to a present father and protector while also allowing Selina to fully move past her Catwoman life would be his priority. That, of course, is meant to be a reference to Batman Beyond's original Catwoman and Terry storyline. Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle would have one of the most convincing cover stories. Bruce's vast wealth would allow him to set up a private, unamusing life anywhere in the world far from Gotham with minimal interaction. Their forced normalcy would contrast sharply with the emotional turmoil of the Parr family. Before retiring, Batman would have executed a final massive operation to neutralize his entire rogues gallery, like Joker, Two-Face, Penguin, Scarecrow, and others. In the Incredibles universe, did they all go to prison, or did the government's crackdown on supers led to many villains like Mr. Incredible's foe Bon Voyage simply getting away or being handled by the regular police? I feel like they all went to prison. But knowing Batman's enemies, Bruce wouldn't trust a government prison. He would likely use his resources to ensure his most dangerous foes, especially the Joker and Scarecrow, permanently incapacitated or locked away in his own deep cover facility, possibly a smaller self-contained Arkham in the catacombs beneath his new estate, built with absolute discretion. If we're going by, Raimi history, Joker would be dead. Mr. Freeze and Hugo Strange would be dead. Two-Face would be dead. Firefly might be dead. But the rest would be alive. But now to Bruce Wayne's civilian life. He'd be a reclusive billionaire slash philanthropist who works from home, running a high-tech corporate shell, perhaps Wayne Enterprises that outwardly focuses on infrastructure, but secretly conducts surveillance and data mining. His own low-key version of the NASA's Operation Kronos, dedicated to protecting his family, watching the world's threats. While Mr. Incredible physically craves action, Bruce Wayne would suffer from the intellectual and moral burden of inaction. He knows about the super disappearing axe long before Bob is contacted by Mirage because his underground network would have picked up the anomalies. His retired peace with Selina and their son Terry is directly balanced against his oath as Batman. This makes his hesitation to get involved with Syndrome's scheme even more gut-wrenching than Bob's, as he's not risking not just his life, but his family's hard-won peace. And Terry changes the stakes. If Terry begins to show even a slight indication of a power or enhanced physical slash mental ability as the movie progresses, it would send Batman into overdrive. He wouldn't be just trying to save Mr. Incredible, he'd be fighting to keep a world where his son is safe. Perhaps even secretly designing Terry's first suit to be ready for the inevitable day he can't stop the crime wave. Selina's stance is that having retired for Terry would be a fierce advocate for staying retired. Kind of like Elastigirl in keeping Bruce grounded, except she understands the criminal world as well as he does and would be terrified of the Joker or another villain somehow getting loose if Bruce draws attention to himself. But now, what about his sidekicks? Here, I'll type it in. Now I'll be tackling 3 of Batman's sidekicks. Nightwing, Red Hood, and Batgirl. More specifically, Barbara Gordon. This is going to start off with Nightwing. His status as a super adjacent hero, trained human, not powered. Forming a team in a separate city, perhaps Jump City or Apparel to Star City, is the perfect way to bypass the ban. His team, with members like Starfire, Raven, and Cyborg, who are not locally famous like the Incredibles, would be a completely underground mobile operation that moves between jurisdictions. I don't know how to pronounce that word to avoid detection. They are the true active supers of the next generation, constantly fighting the low-level threats the Incredibles wish they could. And there's basically a lot. Hold on a second. I think I'm missing something. Oh wait, Bruce would have secretly funded the Teen Titans operations, providing cutting-edge gear designed by himself. She agreed to an okay compromise for decking crucial intelligence relation. She was the biggest one of immense pride on his continued mission in a world that forbade it. Jason and Barbara, they would form Bruce's central intelligence network, and from their base, they would monitor global communication, decrypt government and criminal files, analyze super disappearances. They would be a crucial part to providing Bruce with the actionable intelligence he uses to stay ahead, likely in a hidden sublevel of Bruce's new suburban home. Their dating relationship adds a layer of healthy, non-vigilante normalcy that Bruce and Selena are also striving for. It highlights the fact that these young heroes are trying to build a real life despite the risk. Bruce has never been doing to take a shitty low-level job like Bob. His intelligence network would identify the anomalies on the Nomanazin Island months before the events of the film. Bruce, as Batman via comms, would have warned about Dick and the Titans about Syndrome's tech and the potential threat, telling them to stay away from the main conflict and the main continental U.S. to avoid the trap. And when Bob flies to the island, Barbara would intercept the flight data, and Bruce would know exactly what Bob is walking into. Bruce would then have to make the excruciating choice. Does he break his promise to Selena and activate the Batman suit to save a friend he knows is reckless, or does he trust his former allies to handle the danger, knowing of the fate of supers at risk? And while Bruce flies to Metroville to engage Syndrome, the Bat family would be providing real-time tactical support. Batgirl would feed life schematics of the Omnidroid and Syndrome's base to Mr. Incredible Elastigirl. Nightwing, he and Starfire may be on standby, ready for a full-scale assault if Bruce gives the command. It solidifies Batman as the ultimate example of a powerless hero in a world of supers. He can't fight the Omnidroid with a punch, but he can defeat Syndrome with superior intelligence, resources, and a dedicated network. The very thing Syndrome and his jealousy sought to replace. Syndrome's reaction is discovery of Nightwing. He would view Nightwing the Teen Titans with seething hot fury. Dick is exactly what Buddy wanted to be, a talented non-power hero beloved by a powerful super, Starfire, and respected successor to a legend, Batman. The fact that Nightwing is successfully running an unauthorized super team is a direct refutation of Syndrome's core belief that non-powered people can't coexist with supers. Batgirl would be a game changer. Syndrome prides himself on his technological genius in having the world's most sophisticated AI, Operation Kronos, whereas his systems detect an external superior intelligence network successfully hacking into his data, monitoring his island, and feeding information to the PARs. It would be a profound intellectual and personal insult. Syndrome's arrogance would shatter, and his focus would shift from supers to the Bat family, which is a true threat, and Syndrome would realize his actual archenemy isn't Mr. Incredible, but Batman. And Batman is essentially what Buddy Pine could have been. Bruce, of course, would be spurred by the need to protect his children's world and his own legacy. Like Nightwing and Starfire, sent to deal with the inevitable tech dispersal of Syndrome's weapons. They wouldn't fight the main robot, but would take down Syndrome's flying jets and ground troops. Whereas Jason and Barbara, they would coordinate with Bruce, giving real-time weak spots for the Omnidroid, critically locating Syndrome's master remote control. And then Batman's goal would be the robot. It would be Syndrome himself, for obvious reasons. And the finale would be the Parr family's powers are a distraction and Batman's mind and network are the solution. And this proves that the true way for a non-fake powered to be a hero is through discipline, strategy, and morality, not through creating fake supers. Who would have been the other Titans? Raven, Cyborg, Beast Boy, Wonder Girl to at least imply Wonder Woman exist. Red Arrow, Hotspot, Cyborg, Bumblebee, Urgent, Aqualad to at least imply Aquaman's existence, and Terra, who actually have been trying to be with Dick but end up failing. Now we can talk about Tim and Stephanie. And now to throw in Tim Drake and Stephanie Brown, who in this universe would have been Batman's biggest fans, who would have been in college. Tim would see the flaws of the super's individualistic glory days and probably be the person who first realizes that the way to beat Syndrome is to unite the heroes, whereas Stephanie's love for Batman and heroism would be more spirited and active. Her college major might be something practical, but her heart would be in the mission. That she would possess the tactical agility and fearlessness of a future Batgirl. And the detail about the pink prom dress is fantastic, as the chat says, showing that in a world trying to force them into a mundane existence, they would use their memories of heroic dreams, symbolized by the dress and their romantic moments, as their true escape, highlighting their innocence, yearning, and desire for a more meaningful life. I think this would mean that at some point they try to be heroes during the band, but obviously that didn't work. They wouldn't just show up in the final battle. They would, of course, come, like Tim following his own leads, and Bruce, being Bruce, would notice the classic Robin and Batgirl suits and give them to Tim and Stephanie. Because they would have gone to, the Batcave. This could have been from Barbara or Jason. And of course, these are the reactions of Nightwing, Jason, and Barbara, as well as Bruce. I'm not going to go through them all, but you'll read when you see them on the screen. I think after the events of the first movie, I honestly think after the first movie, I think Winston Dever would probably have made the ban lifted sooner than later. I could be wrong, but the ban would start to lift sooner than it did. And I honestly think at this point, Bruce would probably have passed the Batman mantle to his son, Terry, and he becomes like Batman Beyond, and there would be new villains, like Clue Master, Stephanie's father, even... who else? Oh yeah! Blight! But now let's try to go through other heroes. Superman. Let's start with Superman first. Superman would be the gold standard, the most respected, recognized hero in the world, even above Mr. Incredible. Yeah, they pretty much would be frenemies. He'd be viewed as a universally beloved symbol of hope and truth, perhaps the primary driver of the super boom. He'd probably be a mentor or more powerful ally to heroes like Mr. Incredible, Elastigirl, and Frozone. His presence might have prevented or delayed the decline of heroism, because it would have been much harder for the public to turn on him. The No Man's Land Island, where Mr. Incredible's suit would be compounded. If Superman accidentally saved someone too vigorously, the legal and public relations fallout would be enormous because of his sheer scale of power. There's the ban hiding out. Clark Kent is designed to hide among humans in the Incredibles world. Supers are banned because they're too visible and dangerous. Clark's ability to live a perfectly normal life while possessing godlike power is what the government wants for all supers. Mr. Incredible, of course, would be frustrated, having to use his powers to save a cat. Imagine his reaction knowing Superman is out there doing the same. Bob would be jealous, of course. And Superman's inherent nature is to help. He would struggle with immensely the ban. There's, of course, Syndrome and his impact, which you can read. There's conflicts like and his obsession. And she would want to design a suit for him, a suit that is entirely unnecessary, but she would be driven to create a truly indestructible garment that could withstand his power. And his power is so far beyond the Incredibles, it changes the tone of the movie. And the U.S. government would be terrified of Superman. Let's go through the villains, shall we? And here's basically Superman's life in the Incredibles world. Like, he lives with Lois Lane, his wife, and John Kent, who would become the future Superboy. Like, Lois Lane would be the ultimate protector of the family secret, using her journalistic skills to track down government agents and protect Clark's cover. And John would be growing up in a world where his dad is the most powerful being on Earth, a level that the government is terrified of. Supergirl dating Jimmy Olsen is a open secret they have to manage. Kara's fiery temperament might make her chaffe at the band even more than Clark. But Jimmy, as a photographer, would be torn between his loyalty to the supers and the anti-super headlines. Their normal life in Metropolis would suddenly be subject to the NASA's watchful eye. There's the villains like Lex Luthor, Zod, Brainiac, Metal, Livewire, and Parasite. And the Incredibles would respect Superman immensely, but they would also be intimidated. There's meeting Clark. He could teach Mr. Incredible that the true difficulty of heroism isn't stopping villains, but choosing to live a moral, quiet life. He's not just another hero, he's a game changer. His presence forces everyone, like the government, the powers, and the villains, to play on an explosionary, higher cosmic scale. Then there's Wonder Woman. The film's entire premise hinges on the legal imperation, and Diana, with her Amazonian perspective, would likely view this ban as a fundamental injustice and a moral cowardice. She would not adopt a secret identity like the Pars. She would openly defy the ban, likely leading to a media and massive confrontation. She might become the face of a massive legal and public relations battle. Bob would be aware of and awe of her power and unwavering commitment, seeing her as the pure ideal he failed to live up to, might try to secretly work alongside her, viewing her as a perfect partner for his glorious nostalgia, which would not go well with Helen. This is where the real conflict lies, and she would see Diana as a reckless threat, an idealist whose open heroism puts her children at risk, which is justice for safety. The kids would be inspired. Syndrome's plan, based on making heroes obsolete by creating a robot threat that he can defeat Wonder Woman with, would represent an unforeseen escalation, and her magic-based weapons would make short work of the on-joint direct confrontation, especially since it's built to counter the powers of human supers. And his resentment of a powerful established hero would be magnified tenfold by Wonder Woman's near goddess status. And of course, her suit is already perfect and magical. No capes wouldn't apply, as her uniform is divine in origin, and it would have no practical design input. And the challenge of designing an accessory secondary gear for a demi-goddess would inspire her. She might try to find a way to incorporate technological advanced cloaking system or a non-lethal anti-gadget defense mechanism. She would be obsessed with the lasso of truth and its power, which is the big takeaway. Her presence could rip the band-aid off of the super band much sooner. But I have a way to do this. Basically, Diana at this point is living with Steve Trevor. Diana, who would be like their son's babysitter. And she's like a super mom dealing with the same issues as Helen, but on a cosmic level. Her primary concern wouldn't be just abstract justice, but the safety of her son, the memory of facing cosmic threats like Grail would make the super relocation program seem like a necessary shield against low-level government interference, not an essential threat. She gets Helen's perspective, knows the stakes of letting her child inherit her dangerous life. She'll be living the same life, trying to teach her son restraint, how to hide his demigod abilities. I think because her son may know that he was a prince by secret. And the temptation to put on the armor and fight when the news shows a bank robbery is still there. But she's constantly reminded of her promise, Steve, which is her internal battle mirroring Bob's. Steve would be the primary voice advocating for blending in and protecting their son. He's Diana's connection to man's world law and stability. Donna Troy, who would have been Wonder Girl, being the babysitter is crucial. She's a super who didn't fully retire. She's likely operating as a clandestine hero, handling threats that Diana doesn't have time for. She'd be the one pushing Diana to fight, because Diana was her mentor. Perhaps even seeing the super band as a chance for a new generation of heroes like her to step up. And there's her rogues gallery, which is Ares, Cersei, Cheetah, Giganta, Queen Clea, and Grail. Forgetting someone. Here, let me do. Nuts. And in terms of Erzria, she hates man's world, their hypocrisy, and the band proves her point to Diana. Humanity is weak and undeserving of the Amazonian protection. In my view, Syndrome's plan to sell tech to the world is an opportunity to destroy the world within. Could even ally herself with Syndrome. Perhaps upgrade his tech with the Amazonian knowledge. And the final battle would be a personal showdown. Erzria and Cersei targeting Diana's son and Steve, forcing Diana to choose between her Amazonian duty to all people and her immediate duty to her family. And since we're on the topic of Wonder Woman, what if Wonder Woman was in Green Lantern, the animated series? Will be coming out this weekend. Now to Green Lantern. Okay, I'm on Flash. Basically, the Flash with his potential to cause citywide or even global damage would be an unpredictable level threat in the Operation Kronos files. And Syndrome's failure is guaranteed a lot sooner, and there is legal conflict and impossible to contain. Flash would even act as like a mentor slash rival to Dash. I think Wally would be the rival to Dash. But he would have, but Barry would have solved nearly all the Par's problems. Here, let me add something. And in terms of the child's appearance, I'm going to say their son would have Diana's black hair and blue eyes. A perfect blend of the Amazonian heritage and human connection, and his son would probably be Jason, given that's a name for Diana's son in some continuities. Now, some of you are going to say, but doesn't Steve have blue eyes as well? Yeah, it can be more of a shared trait, if I'm being honest. And he looks instantly communicative. His heritage, which is a massive liberty in the Incredibles universe, we're blending in is vital. And a child with such a striking exotic looks, Helen would constantly worry about this, seen as a beacon that draws attention, which contrasts sharply with her own children, who at least mostly inherited normal human features, even if he hasn't developed powers yet. And Cersei would be fascinated with Diana's son. Syndrome might not grasp the magical significance, but he would recognize him as a potential super in training. And Erzria, filled with bitterness, would seem as the ultimate betrayal of Amazonian ideals. A mix of Amazon blood and the man's world she despises, she would target him to hurt Diana emotionally to improve his choice of a normal life is a weakness. And Donna Troy as a babysitter now makes more sense. She's not just there to watch him. She's a dedicated, well-trained, extremely powerful defender of this child. Like, wow. But now we will move on to the Flash. Back to the Flash. Yeah, I know I was going back to Wonder Woman. My mistake. But apparently he had a bunch of villains like the Rogues, Gorilla Grodd, Killer Frost, and Reverse Flash. Those villains, the Rogues, rely on advanced technology or specific weapons, but they do not have innate powers, which makes them similar villains to the Underminer. And they would be treated as high-tech criminals rather than supers in the metahuman sense. And their well-known no-kill rule in many versions would ironically make their prosecution easier in a world focused on collateral damage. But the true supers are Reverse Flash, Killer Frost, and Gorilla Grodd. And because he's simply impossible to catch, he's still out there operating secret. But he would be probably secretly contained in a deep underground facility. Grodd is a hyper-intelligent telepathic gorilla, and he would likely be locked away, whereas Killer Frost would be put in the same category as Frozone, making her high priority for the relocation program. Barry, of course, because of, the ban, he's like, that's it, I'm not going to be a hero anymore. And Wally becomes a successor, like in the comics. And he impresses a girl named Tara Markov. Obviously, that would be Tara. And he impresses her. Like, I'd say there's something about Tara that interests Wally. I guess it's because he's attracted to blonde-haired girls and blue-eyed girls. Basically, if you ask me. Then there's what if Green Lantern was in The Incredibles. A Green Lantern isn't a local super. They're interstellar police officers with a mandate from the Guardians of the Universe on Oa. Would the Guardians of the Universe care about an Earth government's anti-super laws? Likely not. Which means the Lanterns would likely refuse to comply with the ban. And most supers of the Incredibles have powers they were born with, but the Green Lantern's powers is based on a piece of highly advanced alien technology, which is the Rain. Of course, Green Lantern becomes a new ally for Mr. Incredible. And would either be infuriated or intrigued to the point of obsession. And Violet, struggling with her powers, Green Lantern could be a perfect fit. And Green Lantern could very well defeat the Omnidroid. Villains Hal would have faced would have been Sinestro, in which he's exploiting the government and public sphere supers. They probably would have banned supers a lot sooner. I could be wrong. Atrocitus, the Manhunters, Larfleeze, and Blackhand, who probably would have revived dead supers. Hal at this point would be living with his wife Carol. And their son would have his mother's black hair and blue eyes compared to Carol's sister, Sally, who has black hair like Carol, but Sally has green eyes. Just to differ them. Then there's Green Arrow and Black Canary. Like, Green Arrow would be a vigilante operating after the super ban. He'd be a nuisance, maintain a signature of political activism. He'd be more active during the ban. And Edna would criticize his hoodie. And Black Canary had been forced into hiding during the ban, perhaps even more strictly than the Pars. And the romance would be a secret rebellion. And she'd be hesitant to use her powers again due to legal risk, only for her to unleash her canary cry when Oliver's life is in extreme danger. And she'd be working in an ordinary job and quiet life. Edna Mode would probably design a sound dampening suit that's high tech. Apparently, villains they would have had are the Lombo Hunters, Brick, Sportsmaster, and Malcolm Merlin, as well as Count Vertigo. However, Roy Harper, aka Red Arrow, along with his girlfriend Jay Nygun, Cheshire, would be like Connor's babysitters. And Jay would be a reformed villain. Oliver runs Queen Colonel Stan, but he's a delusioned businessman. Where Oliver mourns for justice, he can no longer openly pressure. Whereas Black Canary would be a vocal coach, as she owns a successful, exclusive vocal art studio, providing perfect cover for her knowledge of autistic. When she has to release pent-up energy, she uses a high-tech soundproof isolation booth to let out a control canary scream into special sound dampening foam, disguised as vocal warm-ups. And her greatest fear is a public incident involving her power, or worse, Connor, who is a bright and energetic elementary schooler who probably I could see being friends with Dash, and he shows superb aim and natural fighting instincts. And that his parents push him into legal acceptable sports like junior archery and karate. And of course, there's Sarah Lance, who I could picture as like the aunt for obvious reasons. Then there's Aquaman. He'd be a monumental headache for the relocation program. His whole life is not a suburban dad role. He's a monarch. He's the king of Atlantis. He's a new super. He'd be like a new ally for Mr. Incredible. Of course, since he's in the No Man's Land Islands in the middle of the ocean, that is Aquaman's domain, so Aquaman could just go there and take down the Omnidroids with his marine life powers and immense strength. Like, even with a try into Poseidon, he'd be too much for Syndrome to handle. Even being natural allies with Mr. Incredible, Elastigirl being the one to bridge the gap, and him having an epic contemporary team up with Frozone. Villains he would have faced would be Black Manta and Ocean Master. Black Manta probably could help Syndrome with, the technology. Siren and King Shark would have been left behind because Ocean Master and Black Manta would be like the big ones. Because Ocean Master might face Aquaman again to create an Atlantean civil war, and the ban might be a distraction that Ocean Master uses while Arthur is busy taking care of his wife Mura, who's not just a queen, but a powerful super in hydrokinesis. And she would never allow Atlantis to be dedicated by surface laws, because she would be the one to issue the diplomatic warnings, and has a deep commitment to her family, but her duty to the throne comes first if the surface world poses an existential threat, like the Omnidroid, and would encourage Arthur to act even if it meant sacrificing their peaceful domestic moments in Atlantis. And of course, they would have a son named Arthur Jr., and he could be seen as an Atlantean equivalent of Dash. And if you want to know where I got Cordax from, you know it's from the DCU. I'm sure some of you should have known. I tried going with other heroes, but this video is getting long. But I try to incorporate as much as I could into this video. But anyways, I might do a Marvel video in the future, like a Marvel version of this. Anyways, I will see you all later.